All right. Okay. Let's get started now. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to the workshop. And I want to start with asking you, how are you handling preparing for your online lessons?
Um, a lot similar to normal lessons, I guess. If we're using a book, is
Mm.
yeah, going through it all, making sure I have additional supplementary materials to send them,
Mhm.
checking
Mhm.
that I have the right audio, and then I try to kind of have another activity. Um, I either have something with video or sometimes I use Google Earth if they're
Mhm.
talking about locations, so I show them different places on the map.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. How do you send the supplements?
I just send them in the chat.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay. Have you had any problems with sending things through the chat?
Yes, some people haven't registered for it, and then I tend to just show it on the screen.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I email everything a couple of hours before and I ask them to print it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had no luck
Very good.
sending it through the application at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could there be a particular
Yeah.
reason why? That when I send something, it doesn't even show up in the chat for most people?
Right. Yeah. Do you know what? Actually, for that, I'm not too sure myself. Sometimes when I send things through the chat, it's fine, and other times it just says like a network disconnect.
Yeah. Well, for
So
me,
I.
it doesn't even come up on their screen like they got a file. I say, okay, can you see it? And they say, no, we can't see anything. So I don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I've just started emailing everything as early as possible and asking them to print it,
Right.
or
Right.
screen sharing if I need to.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to look at a few ways of being able to share files with the students today. So.
I think it might be if they're using a browser and don't have the program on their PC, or it's their
That could
settings.
be it actually.
Because
That would make sense.
if you look at the chat with private individuals, you'll see that some of them, the option for sending a file is gone. It disappears on them, and those are the ones that don't get it if I send it generally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that could be it. That could be using the browser. That would make sense.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple of ways that we've found of being able to share files quite easily. So these days, I avoid using the chat myself just because of that. The fact that I don't know, is it going to send it? Is the network going to disconnect? I don't know. But we'll look into that later. The next thing I want to talk about is how is your workspace working for you? Do you have a good place to be able to sit down and work and without
Yeah,
distractions?
I have a whiteboard. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Ah, cool. All right.
So I
Okay,
mean,
that's
my
not too bad.
planning, honestly, I'd say my planning hasn't changed at all, except for
Mm-hmm.
to send supplementary materials through email. Everything else, I've been going on as usual. I've been pretty lucky. I think that I don't have young learners or particularly low level groups and everything. We just carry on more or less as normal.
Right. Yeah, that's much my experience as well. Like my online preparation hasn't really changed too much. I have mostly high level groups, so it's just a matter of making sure I have all the files I need before the lesson, and then just going ahead and teaching like normal. Um, all right. Okay. Cool. So um, one thing I'd like to mention. This is kind of an obvious thing, really, but with teaching online, it's really important to have like a routine set up. A couple of people I know have been saying things like they're having problems with sitting down at the computer for long periods of time. So, make sure you just have time in your day dedicated to like get up, go away from the computer, get a bit of exercise, stop staring at the screen. Um, Unfortunately, with long lessons, it's not always possible, but it's always good to, if you can do, like have, if you're sat at the computer for 2 hours, have a break where you can just get away from it and for 15, 20 minutes, something like that, and just rest. It's pretty draining to sit there in front of the computer all day long. And then the last thing I want to mention, again, this is pretty obvious, but always make sure to test all of your resources before the lesson. Make sure that your files are correct and all of that stuff, because, you know, if you're like, this is going to be awesome, I want to share it, and then you have problems with that, then that's going to cut a huge chunk out of your lesson that you really don't want to be improvising, especially online. So always test those resources. Right, okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is how to adjust a normal lesson plan for online teaching. So let's say, for example, that we take a look at, let's say in a normal lesson, you'd want to do some kind of board game. And obviously online, that's kind of difficult. So how would you adapt to that?
I actually did prep that for a specific lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had the board game thing. We didn't end up doing it. It was just sort of, there was more time, but I had it on screen share.
Okay.
And then I had used Dice Roller Online, like in a window at the side.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I just gave them all like a stamp for a piece to move, and just used to annotate to move things around.
All right, cool, awesome.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do as well. If I'm doing online board games, like the one I sent to you, as an example, I would do the same thing. I would use annotation tools to track the position of the players. I'd use online dice rollers and, you know, give them links to those to use. As an alternative, if that's not possible, what else could we do? Let's say you've seen a board game that has some really good discussion questions in it, and you really want to use it, but doing it as a board game is not going to be possible.
Suppose you could modify the game to a point where they just pick a number and you give them a question or something like that.
Okay, that's a possibility. Does everyone have access to a snipping tool?
No, I don't know.
No. What's that?
A snipping tool lets you cut images out of, cut small parts out of files and images to upload as separate image files. So let me show you.
Like a marquee tool type of thing?
Yeah. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's actually open up that board game I was talking about. So if you look down here at the bottom of my toolbar, I have this thing here, a little snipping tool. You just do this, and then you can cut little things out like this. And there you go. That's a new image that you would then have to like go up and save it as, you know, for example, discussion question 1, something like that. Snipping tools are really, really useful. I use them a lot. I tend to use this website very much in my lessons. Whether it's for a warmer or I want to have specific discussion. So let's say, for example, we're doing a lesson on advertising. I'd click on the PDF file here. And like in a normal lesson, I would just print this off, make the right amount of copies, cut the pages in half, and then distribute them. What I'm doing these days is I'm using the snipping tool to just do that, and then I'll save this as, let's say, advertising A. And then I'll do the same thing again with this. And then I will send these out to the students. Already in mind, I will have them divided into pairs, like Arena's going to be student A, Dima will be student B, Ksenia will be student A, and so on. And then I can send those files before the lesson. And then once the lesson gets going, we can get started straight away with something like this. So if you do not have Snipping Tool, I would highly advise going onto Google and downloading it.
You can just use a screenshot if you're on a MacBook. Just do or something, you just do a screenshot and you can cut out.
Yeah, for people with MacBooks, like screenshots will probably be the best way to go. I'm just using like a standard like laptop, a Microsoft laptop. So and I've never really.
It would have a screenshot function as well.
I would imagine so. Yeah, I would imagine so. I've not really used Macs much, so I couldn't say for certain. But if it's on Microsoft, it'll be on Mac for sure.
Yeah, I've been using Photoshop, but this should be much quicker.
Yeah, no, definitely. It saves so much time. Like, as an example, in a lesson, we were going through materials really quickly, and I thought, oh, I need to do something. So I went over to that ESL discussions website. I found the relevant topic, and while the students are going through and discussing things together, I just cut out the 2 images, sent them out. It took me 2 minutes to do that. And I was able to do that during a lesson. So it saves a lot of time. All right, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna send you another file, and I want you guys to discuss together how best to adjust this activity for online.
Okay, well, you can do that Photoshop and cut it into 4 pieces and send each one to a different person.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's really impromptu, if you could highlight the different parts, you could probably just send it in a private chat to the students. If push comes to shove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for something like that, I would say that using the snipping tool would take quite a while because there's a lot of cards there to cut out, and then there's this question of.
Yeah, but if you cut them into group, like you give each person like 5 cards or something, I wouldn't cut up every single one.
Right. Yeah.
5 cards, cut that page into quarters, basically.
Yeah. It would be best to kind of exactly as Michael said there, like. Yeah. Cut it into like groups of them and give those to the students and let them go through them like that. All right, cool. So next we want to take a look at how many people are using PowerPoint or Pear Deck for your presentations.
I haven't used it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have a whiteboard, then you know your lesson shouldn't change at all, really. So in that, my question then is, how are you doing grammar presentations and vocabulary presentations?
I use the whiteboard function, and then I have like a Word file open with what I want, and I just copy and paste the text in there.
All right. Okay. Oh, actually, I'd not considered something like that. So it doesn't take you too long to get a presentation together. All right. Okay. Well, while using PowerPoint and Pear Deck isn't like vitally important. It can save on a lot of time when it comes to presentations. The last thing you want to do is have to go through something like passive voice and build that whole presentation on the whiteboard function piece by piece. So as an example, and I mention passive voice because I taught this myself earlier. So I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to share my screen. And this is what I did in my lesson. So I did the share screen function and then I paused it. I went over to my Pear Deck where I have my my presentation ready to go. And then I resumed the share. This presentation took me 15 minutes to put together. And it's just a simple matter of, you know, going through your presentation like normal. Oh, that's, okay, that was a slight hiccup there. So it's like passive voice. Why do we use it? And then it gives me a chance to elicit from the students, give them the points there, provide them with an example, get them to give me the passive example. Do that. You scroll over to the next one. And we give them this, like all the tenses of the passive voice, the active sentences, and then elicit from the students the passive of each one. You go through that and then provide them with the passives of that, and it's done. What could have taken half of the lesson to present took me 10 minutes in the class to go through and do. So if you're having issues with your grammar presentations and your vocabulary presentations, especially if they're taking a long time, that is a good function to use. And they're all stored onto Google Drive. So if you ever need to do it again, you can just go straight over to your passive voice presentation and it's ready there to go. All right, okay. So talking about how to share files. Let me just close that. So I mentioned Google Drive as an option to share files. Essentially what we can do there is click on the worksheet or something like that we want to share with them. And we can provide them with links through the chat to that. So let's just copy this and I'll go to the chat. And then as an example there, that's something that you can just go, okay guys, here's a worksheet or here's some discussion questions, and you can just provide them with the link through the chat straight away. Another option is something called Google Classroom. Has anyone heard about Google Classroom? So in that case, essentially with Google Classroom, let me go back and share another link again. Actually, no, sorry, share my screen. What we can do here is we can have things set up for sending materials to the students. Essentially, you use your Google account to do this, and you can create groups based on lessons, based on the groups we're teaching, on all kinds of different things. I made this one just for this online preparation. If you look up here, there's a class code. So what I'd like you to do is go to Google Classrooms and there will be if I actually go to the main website. There should be this little icon up here, a little plus sign that says create or join a class. What I'd like you guys to do is hit that plus icon and go to join class. And you should be prompted to be given a code. So this is the code to my Google Classroom for this specific online preparation. Okay, does everyone have that? Yeah, okay, cool. So, what you have there is a video on how to use Google Classrooms. The video can explain how to use it in a lot more detail than I can, as unfortunately the workshop's being quite short, we don't have enough time. This is something I'd highly recommend us using as a way of sharing materials with your students. It's secure as you have those codes. You can give them like due dates on materials, share videos, worksheets, all kinds of different things. This is really, really useful, and it's something that I'm going to start using immediately for all of my groups. As the best way to share materials. Okay. All right, so does anyone have any problems with online preparation at the moment? Is there any concerns that anyone is having? All right, okay. Well, in that case,
It takes
then,
a lot of time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, preparation time has gone up quite a lot. For that, my advice is to just set aside a bit of time each day dedicated just to gathering your materials and preparing the lessons. I tend to do this either in the morning or in the evening. It depends for when my groups are, because they're all throughout the day, but dedicate 2 or 3 hours every day to preparing for your lessons. And then make sure everything's all set up for you. As an additional thing, actually, I'd like to mention, it's also a good idea to have folders on your desktop dedicated to your classes. Sharing screen once again. Oh God. So here's my desktop, and over here you have all of my groups plus DOS work there as well. So for organizing materials and things like that, having folders and setting them aside to a certain part of your desktop is going to be useful for organizing. All right, okay, so that more or less covers everything in this workshop. If no one has any other questions, we can finish up there. My recommendation is buy a mini whiteboard. Yeah. If you're gonna do that, do it now before the lockdown gets really enforced on a high level.
Do you think it will?
Probably. Probably, yeah. There's talk about needing QR codes and things to go outside. It's going to go for another month. Yeah, more than likely. More than likely. And if you don't have a good camera for a mini whiteboard, then using PowerPoint presentations and Pear Deck, or as Marco is doing, having the presentation set up in Microsoft Word and then copy and paste into the interactive whiteboard would be the best way to go. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you everyone for coming to the workshop.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good luck with
informative.
with your lessons. And have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.